Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast and your week in IndyCar, a listener Q&A show put together by our good friend Jerry Sitta. Thank you, Jerry, for being so awesome to grab all the questions, put them in a entertaining or amusing order. Guess what? We got a heck of a bunch of questions coming out of good old Thermal Club. Yeah, a little bit of a kick in the crotch, right? Looking at the TV rating, say the audience size coming out of Thermal. Get into that here, get into a couple things before we get into your questions, but let me say thank you as well to our dearest friends at the Justice Brothers, that being justicebrothers.com, makers of rather amazing automotive chemicals and lubricants widely used in motor racing as well. Good pals, long-standing pals at torontomotorsports.com, purveyors of great modern racing memorabilia, hat, shirts, models, stickers, you name it. They are directly affiliated, look after the Pfaff Motorsports Lamborghini team, so lots of great stuff there. So pay them a visit, please. And then finally, our pals at the Sports Car Championship Canada, presented by Michelin, felmotorsports.com, felmotorsports.com. If you want to go racing in Canada in cool sports cars, look them up, go do it, or just enjoy another form of racing that might not be on the front burner for what you're used to. But yeah, the SCCC, great friends of the show, and so thankful to them for their assistance in making it possible. And then our own PruittStore.com, where it's older motor racing memorabilia and show stickers and a variety of stuff trying to get rid of to help buy a house for my wife and I by the end of the year. So that's the preamble. This is a show with both cats watching. We got Rocky and Rosie staring at me from the left. I'll be very surprised if Rocky does not interrupt at least once. We are within a half hour of their feeding time. And, oh, yeah, you thought Devlin DeFrancesco demonstrated anger and aggression towards Scott McLaughlin last weekend. Yeah, wait until we get within a half hour of feeding these fools. So we'll see what happens there. Let's talk about a couple things that happened just after the call for questions wrapped. Did indeed get the ratings, that audience size for Thermal, 50.3% down from what we had to open the year at St. Petersburg. Probably shouldn't come as huge as a surprise, knowing that it was up against seemingly everything, right? Not just March Madness, but also NASCAR airing on Fox Sports 1. So you have Fox responsible for airing an IndyCar race and a NASCAR race at the same time. Awesome for IndyCar to get the priority with Big Fox, big network, largest audience size. Audience? Sure. Leave that in there. Audience size possible. Indeed. Oh, boy. Yeah, NASCAR certainly ran away with things in terms of ratings, even on cable with Fox. Again, also not a huge surprise, but we do come back to a central point of, get to the mid-race blackout and all that in a moment, but this was just a case where, with so many other compelling things on television, unlike the relatively clean, hey, let's go racing for the first time on Fox at St. Petersburg, and hey, 1.417 million people watched. This came in, in the 700,000s. So is this something for us to expect? Other events where we have NASCAR going head-to-head with IndyCar? Doesn't happen a ton, but or maybe other large sporting events. I think we got the Masters coming up Long Beach Sunday as well. So could that be another example where other big sporting events take away? It could. I don't know if there's any real reason to ring the alarm bell here, though, simply because it ain't like we just had this happen for the first time, right? It's not like the move to Fox all of a sudden put IndyCar up against some other popular sports or whatever it might be. I mean, this has been a thing for a while. It was especially bad in terms of the ratings from first race to second race of the year. And so How much of this was the thermal track being an oddity? Not something that folks think of. Pick the event. Again, could be other sports as well. The Masters being a perfect one. That's seemingly something that everybody who loves golf knows to tune into. They're going to be there for sure. If you are a diehard IndyCar fan, I am positive that you were one of those 700,000 and whatever the number was at Thermal tuning in. For those who are newer fans, casual fans, or maybe just really giving it a try for the first time, for those who might be devotees to Fox, maybe it didn't stand out because it's a bit of an unknown place in terms of recognition. And then maybe, as some have suggested, I probably don't disagree as well, you tune in and you go, okay, I don't exactly know what this is. Forget not knowing about the Thermal Club and its history and what it is in terms of being a private club. Just, hey, I've watched a lot of motor races, and this looks a little weird. I don't see much, if any, fans. There are a couple of grandstands we've seen, but they aren't exactly packed. And it just looks like a bunch of cars running around in a fairly obscure setting with no real vibrance brought by attendees. It looks, as one person said, like what we see at Formula One preseason testing. Hey, let's go pound around a track and we'll televise it. But we got some folks who are in the stands, but for the most part, it's a bit of a anonymous thing being done. Did that have any influence? Again, I don't know. No way I can answer that. But I can tell you that between having some pretty big popular things with college basketball happening at the same exact time, plus NASCAR, which is the most popular form of racing here in the U.S. Bit of a fart in church in terms of ratings. I thought, to close here, I thought we were going to be staring at 900 and something thousand, maybe a million. Really hoping it was going to be at least a million, even if it was just exactly 1 million people, to be able to say every race over 1 million people. That was one of the huge expectations during the preseason in moving from NBC and its blend of network and cable and streaming and whatever else for the races to all dedicated on network. Obviously aren't able to say that and won't be able to, but gotta hope that when we get to Long Beach, for IndyCar's sake, sponsors' sake, and everyone else's sake, that even with the Masters, they can put up something that is at least 7 figures in terms of audience size and kind of quell any concerns about this. Also saw that Colton Herta, number 26, Andretti Global Honda, penalized today by IndyCar, team being fined $25,000, being docked 10 entrance points. No driver points taken away, and it's the correct call. I agree with that. Team did not get the assembly of the car perfect. Was found in thermal post-race technical inspection. Colton having finished 4th. It's very helpful. Coming off, I think, 16th at the opening race. Found that the front suspension, lower A-arm, rear legs, as they bolt to the chassis, did not have all of the required safety bits installed. Wrote about it on Racer. Save your time going through all the minutia here. Would suggest checking out racer.com. Definitely would suggest checking out racer.com tomorrow, Thursday as well. But minor assembly omission or error, nothing that can be pointed to as a performance gain. Truly, we're talking about a couple of ounces were saved on each side, but this was simply a mistake. I know for some that don't like the team or don't like the driver, I've seen some comments making this out or attempting to play this up as if it's some sort of big thing and evidence of cheating. This is this is as much of a nothing burger as I can think of. Still, the car was out of technical compliance. No question there, but they were supposed to put 2 of the anti-intrusion pieces in on the lower rear legs of the A-arms. There was a technical bulletin that went out middle of February about this, and they only installed one on his car. No issues on Marcus Ericsson, no issues on good old Kurt Kirkwood. So one of the three cars, instead of doubling it up, they had single. Again, overreaction. Boy, I tell you, that has been the key word over the last few days. Between the blackout during the race, yeah, man, there's some folks who live in perfect worlds who are just so taken aback by things that aren't perfect. It is a shock. All right, let's get going here with your questions. Start off with our Minister of Mirth, Lance Snyder. Says, should IndyCar require all teams of normal-sized drivers to provide step ladders in the pits should a fun-sized driver want to beef and have it not look comical? Referring to the use of many colorful words in the disagreement between Devlin DeFrancesco and Scotty McLaughlin. In my little brief, I don't even know what it's called, but whatever it is that went up on Racer on Monday, it was basically, here's some takeaways. If you didn't watch the race, here's the key points of what you may or may not have seen or missed or otherwise. And I can tell you that I was slightly disappointed, not fully disappointed, but slightly disappointed in the fact that my suggested line did not make it through while referencing this little contretemps. I'm just looking for it here. Let's see. Here's what I wrote. This didn't make it through. It was changed to colorful language. Teammate Scott McLaughlin had the worst IndyCar event of his career after a shocking fall to 25th in qualifying, getting tangled with and spun by Devlin DeFrancesco on the final parade lap. And then I put in brackets, this is the part that got changed. If you haven't seen their argument and don't mind words that end in uck, ucker, and unt, pay a visit to social media and search for the video. So that got edited. I can't argue with that. I didn't think it was going to make it through anyways. But yes, uck, ucker, and unt, with some letters in front of those were certainly heard. Just very quickly here. Devlin had an amazing point. Technically, Devlin was in the right. Practically, McLaughlin was in the right. And yes, as I noted, between 5'0" Santino Ferrucci dog walking, Kirkwood last year at Detroit, I think I mentioned this in some stupid social media post, and now again 5'0" Devlin. Like, McLaughlin's like, I think, about the biggest driver in the paddock, right? I know some maybe have packed on more muscle, and I think Graham Rahal might be, I don't know, an inch or two taller, but like just frame wise, McLaughlin's the biggest guy in the series. And yet I loved everything about this, granted, except for the ucker and unts. All right. I love that part. Look, he comes from a mindset, comes from a family where they don't take bleep from anybody, and a much taller and more physically imposing driver like a Scotty Mack is not going to register with Devlin as something to be bothered about, or that his personal health and safety might be jeopardized. So I love that. Who doesn't love a smaller sized person saying, nope, ain't playing? And even if what happened on track was, how's this? Should have gone too wide through that corner. True. It's not a corner where you want to go too wide through if you are the driver on the outside. Why is that? Lots of marbles, lots of clag, things you would not want to get on your tires, knowing that they were packing up, forming up, final parade lap. Within 5 to 10 seconds, they will be receiving the green flag. Totally understand why there was no desire to go on the outside and try and do this side by side. So How that got lost in translation between the two of them, I don't know. But I can tell you that here we are. We might have to establish the first ever IndyCar beef court. And no, that's not a place at the mall where you get really bad food next to the Sbarro. But yeah, beef court might be in session if we have another one of these. We had it last year at Long Beach between Joseph Newgarden and Colton Herta. Colton, who made a mistake, hit Joseph at the hairpin, knocked Joseph's car out of gear. Joseph lost a position or two. Wasn't really captured properly by the cameras. We couldn't hear it. But there were some tasty words shared from one driver to the other in that. So Long Beach is always high probability for more beef. The year before it was the whole Calamai lot, Augustine Canapino death threat jamboree. So yeah, if you love beef, tune into Long Beach, because I will be shocked if we don't have something to talk about afterwards. And our pal Chris Ward, like-minded, says, anyway, we can get Scotty's sponsor, Good Ranchers, to put money behind the beef of the race segment after seeing Devlin punt Scotty Mack before the green flag flew, then say it was on McLaughlin. And he's kind enough, like so many of you, to say, as always, prayers for you, your wife Chabrel, and your cats. Yes, this is maybe the most, why hasn't this been happening for years since Good Ranchers started popping up on Scotty Mack's number 3? Rock, I love you, dude. He's come over like 3 times trying to get me to stop what I'm doing, and he doesn't want to go backwards. So, buddy, leave me alone, okay? Trying to do a podcast. Love you, pal. They're even saying, we got Chris here, sending prayers and love your way. You're going to survive. It's going to be just a little longer, buddy. Austin Sutton, on the scale of fully fabricated to completely made up, aren't those the same thing? How fake was the fight between McLaughlin and DeFrancesco? This didn't seem very genuine from either side, and I'm wondering if Fox or Penske Entertainment encouraged a confrontation for views and exposure. Please let me know if I'm way off track, or if it was as fake as it seemed. I would say, tell me what about it came across as fake, because that's the part I'm not seeing, Austin. This was something I think captured by a reporter on their phone. If this was meant to be fully produced, I would have expected a broadcast camera to be there. But at the same time, the language used is something that absolutely would not have flown from Penske Entertainment. Would also say that while there are some amazing producers involved in making the content via Fox Sports, none of them are close enough or have deep enough relationships with the drivers, because they've only been doing this for 2 races, to be able to go up to a Devlin DeFrancesco and a Scott McLaughlin and say, hey, could we cook up something? Could you go down and, say some things, and you bark back? And like, those things could be possible with the correct relationships in place. Do I think Scotty Mack would say yes to that? I do not. Do I think Devlin would? I don't think so. Devlin in a awkward place compared to most of the other IndyCar drivers, where he wants nothing more, lives to be seen and received as and praised for being a full-fledged, deserving IndyCar driver. Folks know family, business, money make the seat possible. Not being hired to drive the car, bringing money. Again, we've known that. Same thing at Andretti Global. Not a bad thing. Doesn't make him a bad guy. What's the big component for most drivers who are in that situation? Not all of them, but almost all of them crave to be seen as just as worthy and valid and important as good as a Newgarden, McLaughlin, Palou, Dixon, Kirkwood, Pato, etc. And so coming up with a jokey and or fake made up argument with another driver for the sake of like social media stuff, that would be the last thing that a Devlin DeFrancesco would want, because going viral for something like that, if anything, would make him come across as less than a full-fledged IndyCar driver. And as somebody who doesn't need the money, going viral and gaining fame from something like that does nothing. It does the opposite of support what he's trying to achieve as a race car driver. And Scotty Mack, there are few drivers with a greater percentage of DGAF, which stands for doesn't give a you know what, about things like that than Scott McLaughlin. As real a guy as you're going to find. So, it would have never even occurred to me that this was a manufactured thing, Austin, until you mentioned it. The thing that we didn't get to see, which is the part that I'm curious about, not really that, how's this, temporarily curious about, is from what I saw and what I think everyone else saw, it was after whatever initial exchange they had. Devlin appeared to be at the front of the timing stand closest to pit lane. It appeared that Scotty had come there and moved to that point up front, and the two of them had whatever words. And the real blow up appeared to happen as Scotty was walking away, said whatever he said. Devlin, hearing whatever exactly that was, I think there was an unt in there. A friend of mine from Australia sent me a little DM saying, I don't know if anybody picked it up, but I know by my Australian ears or my down under ears, I definitely heard an unt from McLaughlin. I'm like, I love you, man. Whatever it was that was said turned what I think was the end of whatever they had to say to each other into the blow up that we saw. So what did they say before that? How long did it last? I don't know. So maybe that's part of the Zapruder film that we will never get to see. So, nah, man, this was 1,000% real. And yeah, it was a gift. We didn't know what to expect. Eric Franklin, how was the racing on site? He says coverage didn't show a lot of racing outside the top three. Was the product good enough to warrant another race at Thermal? Do they need to add more fan seats to make it viable? Got a couple other questions similar-ish to this, so stay a moment here instead of tearing right through it. So, couple of thoughts about Thermal. This is my third time going there for IndyCar official serious things. It's my fourth, having gone there last November for the private test with Logan Sargent, some other teams. So been there a decent amount from spring training and its original guys in 23 to the all-star race thing last year to a real race this year and one private test thrown in. And it's gorgeous. The backdrop, the hills behind the private facility just make this so dang beautiful. And the big palm trees in certain sections of the track make for a gorgeous photography and videography. Like, it is stunning to behold. No doubt about that. Got some overarching issues here to consider if it ever wants to be viewed as more than just this strange misfit that doesn't really lock itself into all the other events on the calendar in a successful way. So I started writing a little something, and as I often do, I lose interest or move on to other things. So I doubt it's ever going to get published. Here's a little bit of what I started writing, which might give a little bit of input. I mean, the racing itself wasn't bad. Midfield stuff. Gotta thank the shifting to two types of tires this year compared to last and the year before. So there was a decent amount of this person's on better tires, this person's on worse tires. So there was some decent passing going on, midfield, back of the field, whatnot. Unless it's really being focused on through the broadcast, I don't know if those things like really catch my attention or hold my attention for very long. Again, you see it and you go, oh, hey, nice pass, cool. But again, you're fighting over 19th. And if there's nothing happening up front for most of the race to pique your interest, that's where most folks that I can think of judge the quality of a race by what's going on up front. If it's a case of like Formula One for many years of this decade up through about the halfway point of last season, a little bit before that, but where McLaren really started to flex and Ferrari was doing well, and all of a sudden it wasn't just Red Bull winning everything or Mercedes winning everything. There were a number of years where what happened up front was just acknowledged. There's nothing happening here. Whatever dominant team's going to run away, we gotta focus on other parts of the race where there might be something fun, because otherwise we're going to fall asleep. A little bit like that. So we did have the fun towards the end, obviously, with that masterful decision by Barry Wanzer, Chip Ganassi Racing, to save their brand new alternates until the end. Alex used that, did crazy stuff. Keep in mind, he had an 11-second deficit to the leader, Pato. Didn't just chase him down, but put, 10.1 seconds on him at the checkered. The guy made up like 20 seconds or cleared that amount of time in less than 10 laps is pretty wild. But the part that folks tend to focus on, right? I'm a huge basketball fan. Look, if it's a bit of a runaway game, what do you tend to get towards the end of the third quarter or the fourth quarter? You get garbage time. You get the guys from the bench. Love them. Some of them are amazing, but it's garbage time. Game salted away, run away by 20, 30 points. It's garbage time. That to me is the equivalent of, hey, there's a thrilling duel going on for 17th place. Okay, again, that might be cool. And you can see some great dunks during garbage time or breaking ankles with crossovers. And right, there's still some cool plays that can take place. But it's not really the part of the game that anyone cares so much about. I just draw a parallel to a lot of what we saw at Thermal. The upfront part, truly competitive. What folks, I think, really tune in for wasn't so much there until that final pit stop on whatever it was, lap 55, 56. Or no, I think I'm wrong there. Whatever it was, 10, 15 laps to go, lap 50-ish maybe, of the 65 laps. So there's that. But the couple things that stood out, I'll just read from what I've written, but again, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I hope the IndyCar Series returns to race at the Thermal Club next year. It's a gorgeous venue that stands out from any other on the calendar. The desert setting with the tall snow-covered mountains as a backdrop in March. It's a visual delight, but that's about the only redeeming value I can find in its current guise. And yet, it's capable of being so much more than what it is today. It's beautiful and different, but the wrong kind of different. I spoke with many of the fans who were able to afford the $475 minimum ticket price. And I did speak with some who were fortunate to earn enough to spend thousands of dollars on the VIP tickets. And this part is true. I didn't hear a single complaint. They all love the event, the access, the food, the drinks, and the exclusivity. Then I also heard from some powerful folks in the paddock who represent major teams or companies involved in IndyCar, and we share a common view. IndyCar, like NASCAR, IMSA, NHRA, it's for the people. That's the part where, and this is where I stopped writing, this is the part where Thermal Club's at a pivot point. I am told, having spoken with the series, that there is a very strong desire from the Thermal Club to continue. So that's awesome. Penske Entertainment, owner of the IndyCar series, promoter of a pretty decent number of IndyCar events as well. They're in the business of putting on sporting events, putting on a championship, but hosting many races, generating as much of a profit as they can. Thermal Club pays IndyCar a sanction fee. I don't know what that number is. I do know that some of the other venues, $1.5 million, between 1 million and 2 million is the common number I'm cited as what IndyCar gets paid for the events where, again, it is paid to come and put on a show compared to the events where they are the promoter. It's a nice amount of money. Certainly something that I don't believe Penske Entertainment would want to turn down unless they had a better option at another track. Better could be many things, right? More money as a sanction fee, more fans, better audience size, etc. Where things just start to go a little sideways here is it's awesome that the Thermal Club wants to have IndyCar back. Should also acknowledge if it's costing them just $1.5 million or $2 million, maybe a little bit more, who knows, through other things they put out through marketing or operational costs. But let's say it's $3 million. I have no idea. But let's say it's $3 million to get effectively a 2-hour long commercial on Big Fox Network. I mean, that's the smartest marketing expenditure you could ask for. It's a private club. They make money by selling memberships. Those memberships, 6 figures annually, but it also comes with the need to buy land and build on top of that land. And those things, that's 7 figures plus. They have a lot of unused, undeveloped real estate there. This, to me, is effectively a relatively inexpensive advertising budget being committed by the Thermal Club to get a major motor racing series to its venue to put on a race and hopefully through that pique the interest of folks who would want to become members and buy plots of land and build big, beautiful houses and increase its membership size and increase its membership revenues. So from that end, hey, of course we'd want IndyCar back. Makes complete sense. I just can't see IndyCar returning unless it wants to just come right out and say, we're just taking the check, y'all. Just cut the check. Don't give a crap about anything else. Don't care about running in front of so few people, looking like a ghost town, and all the other things that are a little bit problematic about this crazy private facility that we're at that doesn't seem to be particularly loved by IndyCar's diehards. If it's just a cash grab and IndyCar wants to acknowledge we're just here for the cash, okay. Not saying I agree with that approach, but what I'd rather see, I don't know if there's the least bit of desire from the Thermal Club to do this. The reason I wrote at the beginning of the thing here of I hope the IndyCar Series returns to race the Thermal Club next year is it does have really solid potential. But as a normal event, not 475 to get in, 75, 50, I don't know, per day, whatever it might be. Whatever it costs to go to a Portland, a Mid-Ohio, a Gateway / Worldwide Technology Raceway, Nashville, that, transform Thermal into that, 15 to 20,000 people, grandstands, a revised layout, where they moved us to park on Saturday and Sunday out in the boonies, but faster, more interesting layout, better layout, lot more grandstands, and make it into a real and normal race. Ticket prices down where they should be. If folks want to pay for the VIP experience, cool. Come up with something that isn't thousands of dollars for that, but something a little bit more digestible. Treat it like a normal race. Hopefully you can attract, I don't know how many people, but aim at 15 to 20,000. If there were 10 to 15 to 20,000 showing up on race day, that would be phenomenal. There are some events, as I mentioned somewhat frequently, my home WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. I don't know what the numbers are on race day, but they sure don't feel like 10,000. One or two other tracks. Portland, certainly not looking super full. If thermal can at least be at a Laguna, Portland, or any other tracks that might not be overflowing with folks type of level, then we've got nothing to complain about. So move on to the next question here, but the racing itself wasn't crazily amazing in the ways that we normally look for until we got through that final pit stop. Thank goodness Barry Wanzer, Chip Ganassi Racing, number 10 Honda, did not mirror what Pato and race strategy Nick Snyder and whatnot did on the number 5 Arrow McLaren Chevy and start their race on their brand new alternates as well, or else we wouldn't have had that finish. So could work, but only if they treat it as a normal event and make it as normal, like we would expect anywhere else. Chris McCoy said last week an inquirer asked if hosting a race in a Playboy's backyard made the series look small, and you tended to agree. I disagreed then and now, and here's why. Races are made for TV. 1.4 million viewed St. Pete versus 165,000 in person. Why does anyone at home care how many are there? I don't. Just give me a good race on an exciting track. 2, what makes a series look bad is taking money to host a bad race, like F1 does at Monaco. And 3, this location fits the schedule well. Well, those are all interesting points, Chris. F1 doesn't, quote, take money to host a bad race at Monaco, by the way. Monaco is their Indy 500. That's their most storied and beloved race. So, not saying the race tends to be amazing to watch, but there's a whole nother element to this that has nothing to do with, is this a good race or not? Your first point, it's awesome that you just want to watch a good race on an exciting track. Cool. Might be overlooking the fact that it sounds like folks different than you, or it doesn't sound like you view things in the way I'm about to mention. Average person tends to shy away from things that are seen as unpopular or unimportant. Of course, we all have the band that we love that's totally obscure, that seemingly no one else loves. And there are exceptions, obviously. Some movie where you're like, the entire world said Madam Web was the worst ever, but I love it, and I bought it in 4K 60 Super UHD digital. I didn't, but it's on Netflix, by the way. It's still just as bad, but totally get some situations that don't apply here. But for the most part, looking at something on television where it appears nobody wanted to show up and consume it, that's fine if you have a racing series that is super extra triple popular. And this is just the one little misfit event. Very different dynamic when you have an IndyCar that is not wildly popular. Not yet, at least. Once was, trying to get back there. And that's the thing that I always mention that is so important. While IndyCar or IMSA or any series is trying to get back to where it was and stand as tall and as proud as it once did, being super popular, with tons of fans there, tons of sponsors, full demonstration that there is 100% health. Having TV cameras point to nothingness for 2 hours straight does not create confidence and positive vibes. So I know you just want a good race, watch it from home, and awesome. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing negative to say there. I tend to focus a lot on the big picture as well. I also know what I'm being told by those who own teams, those who represent major companies who are there. Put this in the racer mailbag today. Didn't mention who they were, which company, but very big company involved in IndyCar, telling me, how exactly do we justify being here? Because the product we sell is not something the folks here, either folks who own the multi-million-dollar homes, or, on assumption, the folks who can afford minimum $475 per ticket. We don't sell a product that would fall into their financial range. They're going to be wanting something more upscale, without a doubt. They're not going to want what we want. So if we're going to a market, it should probably be something that most folks are in agreement of. They're like, okay, cool. We can actually have some market penetration, sell some of our things, or maybe give folks a more favorable impression of the thing that we sell or make, and have that turn into sales. Because the sponsors and companies and manufacturers aren't there just for fun. It's to sell things and make money, sell services and make money. This was brought up to me by one person in particular where it really stood out, was said to me by others in a variety of ways. Yeah, we have nobody coming from our major sponsors. I was told this by a couple of teams, not all the teams. Some of them had sponsors there, but I heard from a couple of teams who were like, nope, not bringing them here. Again, it's beautiful. It's amazing. There's golfing here and high level that and exclusive this, and it's opulent. But I am not going to put them here in what is going to essentially be an empty venue. We're trying to convince them to give us more money and that we're on the rise and we're more popular and everything's up. Bring them here, you just popped your own balloon. So I hear you. This might also just be a very fitting example of the difference from being there, seeing it and hearing it and experiencing it on site versus what someone might want just simply watching one of their favorite forms of racing from home. So appreciate you sending in your perspective, Chris. Ed Joris says, bear with me. Alex Palou's performance up until the last stint seemed pedestrian by his standards, and while others had issues with their hybrid systems, he didn't. Is it possible that Palou is managing hybrid use and tire degradation while staying close enough to Pato to be able to run him down in that last stint with fresh tires and relatively unstressed, cool hybrid? Spoke with Barry Wanzer right after the race, then called him right after the race on the 45-minute drive to the airport, and got further insight from Bear. They were able to use their energy recovery system from start to finish. Never had to deviate, never had to wait and cool. They had that at all times. I think a lot of what we saw was the disparity, at least to open the race, with Pato on brand new alternates running off. Alex started, if I remember, on used alternates, just was able to keep close the first handful of laps. Tend to track the gaps between the top 2 or 3 drivers a lot, and I think it was 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, something like that, and then you could see pretty much the exact point where Alex's used alternates started to give up, and that's where the gap definitely started to widen. He wanted to play it down a little bit, but I think the part that we should not overlook was he was sick, and the only reason I knew how sick he was is I spent a few minutes standing 1 to 2 feet away from him Sunday morning We filmed a little thing. I'll try and get that up here shortly. But as someone who still has a little bit of phlegmy sound in his voice, dating back to whatever the heck I picked up across the February 28th through March 2nd St. Petersburg event, y'all, dang near a month, I still got something. Sick of my voice, sick of hearing it being off. And Alex and I spoke earlier in the week by phone, sounded fine. Saw him very briefly on Friday. I don't know, said a couple words, whatever it was. And then did a little video and sounded fine. Didn't see him Saturday. Then saw him Sunday morning at about 9:30, and I heard it in his voice immediately. And I'm like, you okay? He's like, oh, yesterday I was just dead. He said, I woke up feeling a lot better today, but yeah, I'm still sick. I'm like, I can hear it. So they're all pretty amazing athletes. He's using, like so many drivers were, because it was 90 degrees on Sunday, a cool shirt, so that kept him from boiling over. But I wouldn't doubt, Ed, that instead of being at 100% Alex Palou, I don't know what, 99, 98 and a half, something. Would also say that the moment they started hearing Pato and Lundgaard were having to not use their energy recovery systems to let it cool, it's a bit of a limp mode that they go into once you reach the first temperature threshold, 50 degrees C, which is 100 and whatever degrees, 122. It starts to pull power back to try and save itself. Then you just go up a couple more degrees C, and it stops altogether. So we wrote about a number of the Chevy teams, for reasons unknown, decided to use more blanking on their radiators, more blockers than conditions I thought were pretty obvious demanded, and ended up having too high temperatures, couldn't use all the power available to them, and I don't believe a single Honda Power team did on Sunday. So between having the ability to get an extra 0.3 of a lap out of the car using the energy recovery system at all times, that certainly helped. But I also, even though he tried to play it off a little bit, I just don't think he was at 100%. But once they started hearing Pato and Lundgaard were having a hold off, Barry said that's when he really started to sink his teeth in. So not as if drivers don't have plenty of adrenaline coursing through their veins during a race, but as Barry described it, once Alex learned, hey, they're a little bit compromised, that seemed to just trip something inside of him where he was without a doubt charging at 100%. So that's everything that I know. Corey Johnson said, did Palou save an extra set of reds from qualifying on Pato, or did they just run them in different order? It was different order. So everybody in the Fast 12 ran 2 sets of alternates, those red banded tires, leaving them 1 set, again, within the Fast 12 at least. Everybody there had a single set of brand new reds. I could be wrong. Maybe someone else saved one and I don't know. But effectively, the leading drivers, leading entries had single set of brand new to use. And yeah, Aaron McLaren with Pato decided to use them right off the bat. And on the Ganassi side, they saved them till the very end. But as Barry mentioned, that wasn't necessarily a pre-race plan. They started on, again, I believe, used alternates, and then wanted to see how the race was playing out to decide when to use them. And here's the big thing that really took place. With the amount of changes coming into this event, no one had really done any serious racing in high temperatures there with a hybrid. Decent amount of teams tested there during the off season at some point in hybrid configuration, but they showed up here for the race really for the first time in super hybrid configuration in high temperatures. There's also more power being allowed through the hybrid for this event, which is brand new. First time there with 2 compounds of Firestone tires to choose from. Everything previously was all on single compound primary tires. Ended up making last year's primary there the alternate, which is still a bit of a high wear thing, and had a new primary, which was even harder. So knowing all these things, plus there was track changes during the off season, I expected teams to get farther along on race day running and learning prior to the race than they did prior to qualifying. Turns out most of the time spent on Friday during that long opening practice, Saturday morning during the second practice. Obviously, qualifying's focused on qualifying. Most teams did not have a really great feel for how long the alternates were going to last, or even the primaries. What Barry did was say, okay, we think the alternates could actually be a little bit more durable than we anticipated, but I don't want to chuck them on right away, find out they are or aren't, but then have nothing to use in terms of truly fast tire set if we need it later in the race. What he did, and I think some others did, was say, cool, we're going to go with a quickish used set of alternates to start. We're going to watch and see what happens with those who decide to start on brand new alternates. And if they do indeed look like they can last a little while, well, awesome. Going to save those for the final run to the checkered flag, and that could be a place where we could pounce. So this was observing and noting and then acting on what was seen in the first round of pit stops, second round of pit stops, and then making that call. Where else do we go here in the time we have left? Lynn _ IndyCar. MP, is the early dominance by Palou a bad thing for IndyCar? Says, I'm enjoying it being a Chip Ganassi Racing fan, but we need to attract new eyeballs to the sport. I think this would hurt the ability to attract, but he was one of the 3 guys Fox promoted. Isn't it crazy that Alex is already up to 39? I don't know what that reference is, but, I think it's podiums. Yeah, I think it's like 30, whatever the number is, 38, 39. I think I wrote that, which is what's being referenced. Sorry, I'm an idiot. It's a crazy number of podium finishes for Alex in his first 5 years, whatever it is. I wondered the same thing, Lynn, and I don't pretend to have an answer. I guess I can offer a dumb opinion, but the race is looking pretty good for IndyCar's most popular driver. So knowing that Pato led 51 out of 65 laps, including 51 of the first 55, I realize that there's 21 minutes of the race that wasn't broadcast, but I think that would have been received as a fairly popular thing. So the fact that he didn't win, I don't know. Would that be a thing for IndyCar's most popular drivers' fans to piss them off and be rooting for him even more and putting hexes on Alex or the 10 car or the whatever? I don't know. Would I love to have seen Pato win the first race of the year strictly for the sake of IndyCar and a super big boost for its most popular driver to launch things into the stratosphere? Yeah. Just forgetting the competition part, strictly thinking of the folks caring about it and loving it and getting more people to tune in. Tell me who the most popular driver is and I want them to win. Tell me who the second most popular is, and I want them to win, and so on. Newgarden seems like he has a greater and growing profile. I probably need to check in with IndyCar and see if they have any early season stats on fan thoughts and which drivers rank where, at least to open the season. But I'm of the very same mind, Lynn. Love IndyCar. Been a passion of mine since I was single-digit years old. It's the place where one of the places where I make my living. Love it. Been there during its best times, most popular times. Been there during its weakest, most unloved times. And here still as it's at the midway point, fighting back. I want whatever is going to be best for IndyCar to happen. Whether it's the right venues that have a lot of fans, whether it's a driver that's going to command more interest, going to get mentioned on a sports center or something else, compared to another driver who we might all love, but will not move the needle. So I'm with you. I don't believe Alex is someone who moves that needle. He's phenomenal as a driver, as again, I'm telling you everything you know. As a person, just love the guy. Have had a really close, warm relationship with him since before he actually came over to IndyCar. So I'm so happy for him. If Alex were to win the majority of the races this year, it would be to the detriment of the series and its growth in terms of popularity. So give me the other drivers at whatever other teams, his own team, Dixie. I mean, I don't admittedly care who wins, but I do, like you, if it can be possible, would love for it to be those who are going to bring IndyCar to a wider base of folks. Nathan DeRover. It's no question, just want to make sure we discuss Prema's hard work and Robert Schwartzman's frankly incredible drive with extremely limited track time and an unfamiliar car. Yeah, they certainly worked their behind off, and full credit to them. Robert's performance on Sunday, in light of all the issues they had, all the setbacks they had, what did he do? Run to like 20th, 22nd, something like that. 22nd place was, 22nd might not sound like much, but it impressed me. Quick note here, things that I did not expect coming the new season. After 2 races, Robert being 2 spots ahead of teammate Callum Ilott in the championship. Obviously, Callum running over the back of Robert here to open the race. Don't know exactly how that transpired, but basically crashing out there, finishing next to last. Callum being 24th in the standings. I did not have that. Wherever Robert was, I expected him to be 3, 4, 5, 7 spots ahead. Indeed, Robert is 22nd on the strength of a 20th place run at St. Pete and 22nd at Thermal. They got to get their act together. And I don't mean the on-track part. I'm not talking about where they qualify, where they finish. Callum's car, I believe, has been all but perfect, close to flawless across each session this year. Maybe I'm forgetting or missing one session where something went haywire, but I've only had 2 weekends. But Robert's car seems like all of the problems happened there. Off track, sitting on pit lane, major issues. On track, major issues. I don't know what the root of the issues happen to be. When something happens once or twice, you look at it and go, all right, boy, that's bad luck. When you start getting into 3rd time, 4th time, you go, okay, there's something systemic here. Is this a finger trouble issue, right? Things aren't being put together the right way. Things aren't being done properly. Is this a managerial thing? Is someone being too lax? Is someone being too harsh? Don't know. Weird thing, it's not across both cars. It's only been across one. They have spent way too much money and focused way too much on the polish and shine and brand new everything. And like, they have spent a fortune. They look wonderful, but having one car that seemingly cannot either get out of the pits or stay on track while the other one's doing fine. Look forward to them getting that addressed, because I know, at least based on reputation, they are far, far better than this. Michael Everson. So we saw a few hybrid failures owing to temperatures and vibration. Wondering how those failure limits hadn't been previously reached at other circuits with similar conditions. What sort of modifications might be made to rectify them? I can only think of one other track that had similar conditions, that being Iowa last year, where, again, if I'm remembering correctly, it was scorching. at least on the Friday, maybe even to the Saturday a little bit. Enough so that my new Sony video camera, was refusing to work, much like the hybrids at thermal, for being too hot. Like, just straight up little flash warning on the screen saying temperatures have been exceeded. Ain't happening. Some self-induced problems in the race for sure. I believe they were all across Chevy-powered teams. We had it happen with Award and Lundgaard. I wonder if Ferrucci was in there as well. Coming back to that running too much blocking on the radiators, you go, well, wait a minute. You know it's a crazy hot day. Why would you try and blank off some of the radiators to limit airflow? Well, you can reduce drag and improve downforce by doing that. You're never going to want to run them completely wide open if you don't have to, and just surrender the aerodynamic benefits. So teams will do their best to get close to that temperature threshold without exceeding it by blanking off whatever amounts of the radiators that they can. Well, part of that blanking part affected the new energy recovery system radiators that are placed into the right side pod. So that's a new thing with the hybrids. Doing a bit of blockage there would have affected that as well. And it seems like there were a number of teams from the bow tie side. I don't know why we didn't have any from the Honda side, but went a little bit too aggressive. And while their internal combustion engines stayed within range and were able to work from a temperature standpoint, that blocking effort did indeed take the energy recovery systems on a couple of those cars over the threshold that I mentioned and started to make them not work. So no cautions also played a role. There were no pauses in things for everything to cool down and circulate and just let the engine rage a little bit less so things aren't glowing red hot and transmission isn't glowing red hot and energy recovery system isn't glowing red hot. So the no brakes in racing certainly played a role in there as well. So yeah, we hadn't seen any conditions like this, both ambient plus the lack of yellows. The other issues that were had, which a couple of teams experienced on Friday, was a wiring issue. Internal, something where the wiring itself was coming loose from a military spec connector, and that's what felled Alexander Rossi and the Ed Carpenter Racing Team right away. Spoke with their general manager, Tim Broyles, who caught me up to speed what happened there. And that was found. A bulletin was sent out. I don't know if every team, but I think the majority of teams split their cars open to look inside the bell housings, see if they were experiencing the same separation of wiring from the connector, and addressed those. So I think I was told 3 or 4 of those were found and rectified. Rossi then, with the replacement bell housing and spec energy recovery system, then had an MGU problem unrelated to the first wiring issue. So that was that. And then Scotty McLaughlin had an MGU issue during the race. So also one other factor, which is the pounding that these cars are taking across whatever was turn 16, I think. Still taking a pounding there, even though they shaved down a bit at that part of the track. Haven't seen anything like this, Michael, for IndyCar's hybrids. The heat, the sustained heat with no brakes, the just wiring issue, which just sound like more of a assembly thing before they were given to the teams. And teams truly just bolt them in. They're not allowed to mess with anything inside the bell housings related to the energy recovery systems. The pounding they took, the heat, the sustained heat, this was the worst case scenario that I can think of since these things went live at Mid-Ohio last year that they've been put through. And that's awesome. Like, hey, the worst conditions ever for these energy recovery systems were just experienced, and problems were found because they've never had the opportunity to go through something like this. So sucked, obviously, for those who had problems that weren't of their own making. Those who used too much blanking did it to yourselves. Not like Barry Wanzer. I don't mean to keep mentioning Barry, but I did ask him, what'd you guys do? And he said, yeah, we ran the radiators more open than we ever have because we saw what we thought the temperatures were going to be, and we decided, hey, we'd rather err on the safe side, have too much air quote, too much air flowing through, give up a little bit of that percentage or whatever it might be of aerodynamic awesomeness. Because if we are having motor engines, just leaving it in, motor problems, the internal combustion engine side, or we're having the energy recovery system say, nope, not playing because it's too hot. Well, we just played ourselves. So they said, we're just going to open things up more than we ever have, and said, hey, things were super toasty. Like, said we weren't too far away from what the limit would be, but we did open things up enough to never get there and therefore be in a good range the entire time. Let me see what else we might go through before we say goodbye. Thomas Gross says, you asked me to update you after this race and my thoughts on the broadcast. Says, we will skip the giant electric elephant in the room. I didn't really get to that. Granted, I haven't had any questions Jerry at least placed towards the front here, but yeah, the circuit breaker problem. It caught y'all by surprise the same way it did for us. The TV screens in the media center went dead in an instant. We initially just thought it was something local, right? Hey, someone pulled a plug out or whatever. And after realizing, no, everything's plugged in, all the connections are good, this is a bigger problem. Like, okay, so I dove straight to my phone and pulled up the Fox Sports app, and it went through a heck of a bunch of commercials. And then when it did come back, it was showing the NASCAR Cup race. And I'm like, did I somehow hit the Cup race feed instead of the IndyCar? So I went back, I dove out of that, checked in, and no, okay, that is the Indy. Like, hit that with my finger on the phone, and it came back up. Actually, it ran me through like 4 more commercials. I'm like, come on, y'all. And then no, it was indeed Ryan Blaney leading or something like that at Homestead, Miami. I'm like, okay, Houston, we do have some serious problems here. They lost the feed. Wow. Okay. So then I dove over to the IndyCar app, which I've moved to the home screen or first page or whatever I should call it on my phone. It's usually been like the 4th, 5th page that never gets used, but I dove there. It did have, what did it have? I think it had an in-car feed or something. It might have just been the March of Ants around the screen there, but was able to see stuff, was able to hear stuff. Cars were just right outside the media center. So I'm like, okay, no, everything's still functioning. Was watching the timing and scoring feed, could see, yeah, things didn't appear to be changing at all. I'm like, okay, so this is just television has shut down altogether. And after the race, they said, yeah, it was a circuit breaker that blew. Fox in their email yesterday, Fox Sports, in sharing the TV audience size, they said in the truck is where this happened. So the phrasing of that suggests that it was inside one of the production trucks compared to an external generator or something sitting outside. Again, that's just what they wrote. So assuming that's accurate instead of just a general reference to things, and it actually happened some other way, I don't know. But let's get back to Thomas. Did indeed ask for your thoughts. He said, so we'll skip the electric elephant in the room. He said, timing and scoring was still glitchy. Guys were jumping around the first few laps. Timing did not appear until lap 6. The mechanical graphic on brake bias was nice. Still felt like Will Buxton did not understand IndyCar and some of the normal IndyCar terms or even driver names. So I'm trying to be patient. His voice and delivery sound great for pit reporting. I just don't get the sense that he can carry the broadcast. 6, Jack Harvey still sounded like he was being held hostage. He is, so we should acknowledge that. 7, a lot of stuff felt left out, but that could have been because we missed a quarter of the race when they would have covered other battles and other stories. Said overall, I'd give this a 3 out of 10. He says, I guess that is better than race 1. Yeah, I heard from a number of international fans who said Friday's broadcast was brutal, rife with problems, whether it was graphics, audio feed, video feed, just all over the place. Think Saturday morning as well, and then started to hear things seem to get more corrected, qualifying in the race Sunday. Most of the international feedback I've gotten said things, by and large, were really, really good compared to what they were at the first race. Not talking about quality or loving what broadcasters and who said what or how, but just a super glitchy, super non-glitchy. The Sunday report from most of the international fans who kind enough to share their insights, they said by Sunday, no major issues to offer. Yeah, it's a rough event. And I know that we're past an hour here in the podcast, so I'm going to wind this down in just a sec. But also mentioned this in the Racer mailbag. Not a surprise for Fox to have some issues from race 1, right? Brand new, first of everything, etc. Got it. Totally good. Totally understand. It would be crazy if there were no graphic issues or audio sync or whatever it might be. Thing that stood out as, oh boy, maybe not exactly what was expected, was race 2 with a couple of weeks to try and button up and clean things up. Almost felt like there were more issues, more things not going according to plan. Again, forget the whole power outage, nothing related to that, but just, And the part that made this feel so weird is it's not like this is their first motor racing series I've ever covered, right? NASCAR forever, had Formula One for a super good long time, American Le Mans Series, Grand Am, IMSA. Realize not all those series either exist anymore or been on Fox in the last couple of years, but 24 Hours of Le Mans as well. I mean, I was part of the broadcast team in 2017 for their final hosting and airing of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So a lot of the same folks at Fox Sports are involved. This is the head scratcher. Not that they have had issues, but sustained issues, new ones, different ones. The Stingray McLaughlin graphic, for example, using Stingray's face over the number 3. Just quality control stuff, glitches, things that just know that IndyCar is new to them. Been a surprise to see that now 2 races in, feels like instead of race by race progress, could be wrong, but it felt like race event 2, not just the 65 lap round Sunday, but the entire weekend of broadcast. I don't know if I could say it took any kind of major step forward in fixing, addressing, and leaving the shortcomings behind. So from what I think I know about the people in charge, there will be a giant fire lit under every behind to ensure that when they get to Long Beach, the 50th anniversary of the event, we aren't talking about any of these problems. If that continues, I will be concerned for some folks there. Okay, I'm going to go take a nap. This is our show for the week. Thank you for tuning in, listening in. Thanks for a lot of the great thoughts, agreeing, disagreeing, sharing alternate takes. This is the stuff that I love. When everybody is aligned and singing from the same sheet, that is the stuff that bores me to no end. So appreciate y'all. Appreciate Jerry. our great partners in the Justice Brothers, TorontoMotorsports.com, and the Sports Car Championship Canada, presented by Michelin. And I'll speak to y'all here very soon.